In late May 1314, Robert the Bruce began assembling his army in the Tor Wood, not far from the battlefield of Falkirk. By the time Edward II left Berwick on June the 17th with his huge army and supply train, Bruce had gathered about 500 light cavalry and 5,000 to 6,000 infantry. He also had another couple of thousand lightly armed reserves providing support for the combatants. By contrast, Edward commanded at least 15,000 infantry and about 2,500 heavy cavalry. Leaving Edinburgh on June the 22nd, after resupply, the English quick marched the 20 miles to Falkirk, where their exhausted army made camp. Meanwhile, Bruce had relocated to the New Park, a heavily wooded hunting preserve just south of Stirling, the southeast corner of which straddled the road leading to the castle. This road was the only route with solid ground enough for movement of heavy cavalry. Their passage was barred to the northeast by the tidal River Forth and its bordering marshes. Countless sluggish streams meandered through the area between the road and the marshes, one of the largest being the Bannockburn. Adjacent to the road, just north of where it crossed the Bannockburn, was a small strip of farmland. Steep hills and broken moorland provided cover to the west of the road. Bruce deployed his force in 4 brigades. His own brigade, composed largely of Highlanders, was placed furthest south. At the north, near St Ninian's Kirk, the Earl of Murray commanded the former vanguard. Edward Bruce, the king's brother, and Sir James Douglas led the 2 remaining brigades, positioned somewhere between the king and Murray, with the cavalry under Sir Robert Keith placed along the western edge of the New Park. To improve this already strong position, Bruce ordered his men to excavate small pits nearest the English. When disguised with a covering of branches and vegetation, these would make a nasty surprise for charging cavalry. Early on the morning of June the 23rd, Sir Philip Mowbray, the commander of the English garrison in the castle, was granted a safe conduct to meet with Edward. Mowbray pointed out the difficulty of attacking the strong Scots position directly, but Edward was determined to unleash his powerful army on the Scots. He ordered the vanguard to advance. As the English neared the Scottish lines, Sir Henry de Bohun, a high-ranking but inexperienced English knight, noticed a solitary horseman. The circlet of gold on this knight's helmet identified him as King Robert. De Bohun immediately charged, and Bruce rode forward to meet the challenge. Shifting his horse at the critical moment to avoid the lance, Bruce landed a mighty blow of his battle-axe on de Bohun's helmet, splitting it and de Bohun's skull in 2 and splintering the axe haft. This electrified the Scots, who surged forward to repulse the other English cavalry fighting on a narrow front due to the honeycomb of trenches dug the previous night. While this dramatic episode unfolded, an English unit of about 300 cavalry had somehow skirted the Scots' left flank and nearly reached St Ninian's Kirk. Murray rallied his men in a fierce assault. The relentless advance of the Shiltram's bristling spear wall toppled the horses, crushing the knights. The few English that survived this ferocious struggle fled the field, while the Scots suffered virtually no losses. As both armies settled for the night, deep gloom descended on the English, who inexplicably decided to bivouac in the boggy area north of the Bannockburn. While the English troops laboriously picked their way through the countless streams, the Scots leaders held council to decide whether to break off or to continue the battle the next day. As they conferred, a Scots knight serving the English arrived with the information that the English were terribly dispirited and had no stomach for a hard fight. The Scots decided to give battle. Action resumed at sunrise on June the 24th. The English began to move onto the firmer ground of the field bordering the road, but they were strictly limited by the impassable marshes bordering them on all sides except for the southwest front facing the Scots. Bruce's army formed up into schiltrums to receive the blessing of the Abbot of Inchaffray, and then attacked before the English could organise into proper line of battle. The English charged against the lead schiltrum commanded by Edward Bruce, but they could make no headway and were immediately pushed back. Murray, on Bruce's left, saw the English falter and attacked their flank, which caused the English vanguard to fall back upon its own cavalry and infantry, instantly creating chaos. Douglas's brigade joined in the violent assault on the disorganised and constricted English, who were being inexorably crushed back into the tidal marshes and streams. The English finally freed a body of archers from the rear of this bedlam. As they began to form up, Bruce ordered Keith's light cavalry to scatter the archers before they could bring their deadly fire upon the schiltrums. The Scots cavalry attacked with such speed and ferocity that the archers ran in panic. The bulk of the English infantry could do nothing, being either pinned behind the cavalry or on the wrong side of the Bannockburn, and thus unable even to fight. Bruce finally unleashed his Highlanders. These fighting men from 33 clans, among the most expert swordsmen and axemen alive, leapt forward to vent their rage upon their hated enemy. The completely intact schiltrums, augmented by the fierce Highlanders, were hacking the English to pieces and forcing them relentlessly back into the treacherous bogs. As the outcome of the battle became obvious, the Scottish non-combatants poured out onto the battlefield, armed with nothing more than farm implements and sticks, and joined in the slaughter of the helpless English troops. When Edward's bodyguard realised the sudden danger the king was in, they rallied round him to break away to safety. Edward barely escaped alive. One horse was killed under him, and only the personal sacrifice of his closest companions got him out of danger. Edward fled to Stirling Castle, but turned away to the south when he realised he could fall captive there. Sir James Douglas pursued him all the way to Dunbar Castle, nearly capturing him several times. Edward's departure signalled the defeat of the English. Most gave up trying to fight and simply tried to escape with their lives. Their heaviest losses happened then, as much from the natural hazards as by the hands of the Scots. So many drowned in the Bannockburn that their bodies formed bridges across which some of their comrades managed to escape. At least 36 English barons and several hundred knights perished at Bannockburn. Nearly another 100 barons were captured and held for ransom. Thousands of common English soldiers died. The Scots' losses were negligible.